So I've moved forward a little bit more on the starboard side. I'm about 10 feet from the bow, and I'm looking here at this joint right in here. It's a scarf where it's a hook scarf, and it's where the forefoot, this being the forefoot timber, is spliced on to the wooden keel, and it's not opened up awfully bad. And this is the hook part of this scarf right here. This is what keeps this timber hooked around this piece to stop the two from migrating apart in that respect. It looks in pretty good shape. You know, the keel again looks in very good condition, and the forefoot looks in pretty good condition. And then I get looking up underneath, and even though I believe it's still in pretty good condition, it's got some fairly serious checking in the very bottom of it. Now, the only problem with this is if this boat was taken into warmer waters, worms would get up in those checks and become a problem. So you wouldn't want that to happen. If I was going to take this boat into warmer water, I'd want to cap the bottom of this, either with a worm shoe or with some copper sheathing up alongside the keel, or fiberglassed over. Not that that has any structural aspects, but just to keep the worms away from the checking in the bottom of the keel. You wouldn't want it to get any worse than it is. Boat's got a nice white oak stem in it. Seems to be in very solid condition. This would be what's called a cutwater. It's just a piece of metal that's placed on top of it to protect it from banging into different things that might be in the water or the dock or something like that. The top section of it's been removed here. These little light screws tend to deteriorate quite rapidly, so what happens is this thing would come loose and fall off eventually. So my recommendation is to unscrew it while you get a chance, because you can get the heads of the screws and probably back them out, and then just go ahead and clean it all up and rebed it and refasten it back on. This is a very broad garboard plank, as wide as 12 inches. Huge. And it's not fir like the rest of the boat. This garboard plank was put in oak, and the reason for that is because it's got quite a radical twist in it, and they were not able to get a twist like that into a piece of fir. Earth fir would just blow up. The other thing I'd say about it is that this being what they call a built-down keel with a stern post, it's got what they call a tuck. The tuck in the boat is this area here of the very tight inside curve. And there's two planks up here that are also oak. This plank right here is oak. This is in the tuck, and this plank below it is oak. So the reason why those was the same reason why they made this one out of oak, because these planks are radically twisted, much more so than any of the other planks on the boat. So they had no choice but then to use oak for those in this situation. If it were a mahogany plank boat, you might be able to get away with it with mahogany, but you planked with fir, and they weren't going to use fir in this situation. Now, I'd also like to remove a couple of screws here, and I'm going to pop a few plugs out with an awl here, and we're just going to take a little look and see what kind of condition the screws are in. So I've removed the plug, and now I'm down in the bottom of the hole. I'm going to define where the slot is in the screw, and that's kind of in this direction. So I know now that I can pick up my bit brace and get it in the slot. Reverse here and take the screw out. Now she's bronze fastened, and these are bronze screws, and I'm going to take a look at the condition of this screw. In most situations, if there's problems with the fastenings, the problems would be on the back side of the plank, where the water is able to get at it and cause an electrolysis situation in this area where my thumbnail is. But this is kind of a different situation, because the damage is more up near the head. And exactly why that is, I would tell you that the plugs weren't in it awfully tight. They probably weren't sealed when they were put in. They may have been removed a number of times. You never know how many times the screw's been removed, but I find it surprising that the condition of the screw in the threaded area is in the condition that it's in. Now I'm going to put it back in, and the reason why I'm going to do it is I'm going to find out by tightening it whether or not there's any holding power in this keel, which I'm reasonably certain there's going to be because of the condition of it and the sounding of it. So now it's hit the bottom of the hole right there, and it tightens up quite nicely. This other one I've already removed and put back in again, and that one tightens up quite nicely. So the thing it tells me is that the condition of the keel in that area where it's required to have holding power is still good. Because now's a good time, while it's as dry as it is, to pull that planking up as tight as it can be pulled up against the rabbit line. Now that would be without reefing any of the caulking out or any of the seam compound or anything, because the boat is loose enough right now to let that plank have some mobility, in which case they could be tightened into the rabbit line a little tighter than they are right now. So now I'm going to take a look at the horn timber here. The horn timber is the timber that's on the center line, that's between the garboard planks, and not to be confused with the keel. The keel is lower than that, and take a look and see about that. And they've got the rudder out of it here, and I'm going to take my knife and reach up in here. This is actually the hole that the rudder would extend down out of. Now I can see that when it was built, it never had either a brass or a fiberglass or copper tube coming down through here, so they were having a hard time getting paint up alongside the post, in which case the worms have gotten at it. Now that hole should have been straight up like this on all sides, but watch this. I'm going to reach way back in here, and look how far my blade goes back. Now the worms have gotten in there. Now whether or not that's from the warmer waters of being down south and then it was never addressed, or that actually happened in the waters, the northern waters, I'm not sure, but those are Dorito worms, I believe. The fuel tank's been removed, and that's good because it allows us to get a good look at it in here, and we see some things right away that I started talking about down below, and that is, this is the position in the horn timber, this being the horn timber, where the rudder stock came up through. And now it's heavily worm damaged up in here. And it's never had a tube put down through there to protect it, so the worms have gotten at it, and it's in pretty bad shape in there. Now in some boats, if the worm damage wasn't too bad, you can actually put a block of wood in here. You can remove a piece and put a block of wood at the top, maybe another one at the bottom, and then put a tube through it connected to the stuffing box. You'd actually take the stuffing box like this and have this piece removed, and then have a recess machined into it with a tube on it, a brass tube welded to it that would protect this down inside. And you can even thread that brass tube on the other end and put a gland nut on the very bottom, and that's possibly what's going to happen here, but it's looking a little worse than I thought it would look. And I'm going to probe this timber a little bit in spots, and you can see right here that I can just wiggle a screwdriver right down into it. So that's not in very good shape. And down this side, it's got some problems. And then as I get further forward in this position here, she's got problems in here. Now these problems are caused by electrolysis, and what happens in this situation is that H2O, pure H2O, does not conduct electricity, but when you have minerals in it, which in this case is the salt, the ions in the minerals conduct electricity. And it's a cathode-anode situation. There's electrons migrating from one piece of metal to another piece of metal, from the less noble metal to the more noble metal. And what it does is it makes the salt in the water break down. And when it does, it breaks down into hydrochloric acid in solution with water and sodium hydroxide. Sodium hydroxide is lye. It burns pretty much anything it comes in contact with, and what it's done here is it's turned the moisture content in this wood to lye, or it would be an alkaline, and it is burned the lignin out of the wood. The lignin is what is the glue that holds the fibers together. So what you still have here is the fibrous content of the wood, but it has no lignin left in it. So this piece of wood here, this horn timber, is reasonably compromised. This is from alkaline damage. This isn't rot, it's alkaline damage. So it's from the bilge water breaking down.